Welcome to Yelling into the Void, a podcast discussing and exploring topics in World of Warcraft. I'm Tevin. Scott joins me today, as well as a bit of post-raid kind of podcasting. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
our only time that we've ever post-raid podcasted.
Well, yeah, because we've only done rating just this one time since we started podcasting. So by definition, yes. But no, it is Monday night late. We finished our Monday night raid, and I can't record tomorrow on our usual day, so we're doing it tonight. Which means we don't have any Mythic Plus to talk about. But let's be honest, I don't know how much we were going to get to talk about tomorrow anyway.
Well, at least can you think of more than just taunt currently, or you still got tank brain on?
So let me tell you something that I did not realize. I haven't raided in this version of the game as a tank in ever. Um, Man, the weak cores just tell you what to do. Like I mean, every raid has a taunt switch mechanic, but like the game just tells you when to taunt. You don't even have to pay attention to that anymore. I was like prepping for this raid. I was reading it all the tank swaps, and I was like writing down what the names of them were called and when you're supposed to do it. And some of them, you're supposed to let 2 hits go first and then hit it. Nah, the game just tells you. It just taunt. It says, and so I press the button.
But does it tell you to move? Does it tell you
Uh,
where to stand?
No, it doesn't. That's why tanking is the hardest job, because you have to figure out where to stand.
All right, I don't believe you after that one. I'm gonna be real. But I guess when this releases, Mythic Plus is here. So happy hooray for everybody who's doing Mythic Plus today.
Yeah.
Raid is here, Mythic Raid's here. The Race to World First, at least according to Max, is going to be starting with Mythic on Tuesday. So let's go.
That's good news.
I'm not sure I believe that. I have a feeling that they're still going to do splits, but I guess we'll see when everybody gets in if they're able to start with Mythic or not.
We'll see.
But we have repeatable content to do, so I'll get to play the game outside of like the using my keys and then getting capped on crests and then not logging in for this of the week until raid.
Oh my god, we're gonna play so much Mythic Plus. It's gonna be absolutely disgusting.
So I guess the first thing I want to say, and this is really going to segue us into kind of like the main segment of the show, which is like the fastest I think we've ever done this.
Whoa.
But this raid fucking rules, man.
Oh yeah, it does. Hell yeah, it does.
It is, I don't know. Every single boss is super fun. There is a lot of mechanics that are like punishing, but not overly annoying, I guess. Like there's bosses that I think are super annoying for ranged and casters. There's bosses that I think are super annoying for melee. And honestly, I think melee has a pretty hard time this raid. So maybe I'm coming at this a little bit off tune. I don't know. You're in melee and you seem to like it, so I don't know. I feel like the entire raid in itself seems pretty good though.
I'm loving it. I think it's so fun. I mean, so we did normal on Friday, and blitzed right through it. And I actually want to talk to you about that. But blitzed right through normal mode, not too much of a challenge, and then really started heroic just mere moments ago. We left a heroic raid, and so I mean, I haven't, like, some of the normal fights are like so easy that you don't really get the feeling of the fight yet. But like I think even like Ansarek, the final boss, on normal was a pushover, but you still like saw enough of the mechanics to know, oh, when this stuff is actually challenging, and when you actually have to do phase 3 instead of just like immediately kill the boss in phase 3 before she does any of the phase 3 mechanics. It's like, oh yeah, this is gonna be really cool. And that's how I felt about so many of the fights. And yeah, we've done 4 of the 8 on heroic now. We're progging on the 5th and probably going to kill that pretty soon. And all of them have been bangers, every single one. So yeah, it's been great.
I will say, and I don't know if this is just Okay, so I guess let's take a step back before I go into that. Do you want to talk about normal first? Let's do that first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just have a question for you generally. Like, do you think normal mode is too easy? And this is a tough question to ask because, like, the answer for you and me is yes, like, definitely. But just because that's true doesn't mean overall, from a design philosophy standpoint, normal mode is too easy. I don't know. What do you think?
Uh, so I struggle with this because, like, if you take and you just were to watch like our group, so let me ask you this: if all you did was watch Liquid or Echo do heroic, would you think heroic's too easy?
No, because I mean, like, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much you know about the game when you're watching them do it, right? Like, there's things that they make look easy, but like if you know enough about the game, you know, oh, that's requiring a lot of coordination. Like, you can look at heroic Ansarek and immediately see that there are two slime rings that you have to both pop to propel yourself into the air, and you need to hit both of them, and you can immediately go, oh, that's a coordination nightmare, without actually knowing the details of it. And you see them do it, and they perform it flawlessly because they're Liquid or Echo. But um, I guess that was a long way of answering your question of both yes and no. They
Well,
definitely make it look easier than it is, but
I personally don't think normal mode is too. Actually, I guess this kind of contradicts what I'm going to say. I want to say I don't think normal mode is too easy, but I do think normal mode is not punishing enough. I don't think that it actually teaches you what you can and cannot mess up.
yeah.
Because there are things in normal that do, like, they tickle you, but they will just outright kill you in heroic.
Hmm.
And I just don't think that the step up is punishing enough, because, like, I expect to be able to ignore every mechanic on LFR.
Yeah,
I
there
don't
are there
expect
are no mechanics on LFR. They don't exist.
exactly. I don't expect to be able to ignore every mechanic in normal though. And I feel like for the most part, like, we did.
I mean, like, so, the what is the second to last fight called? I always forget the names of these things. I should have this in front of
The
me.
Silken Court.
Yeah, yeah. We fucking fucked that boss up so much in normal, like so much, and we just brute forced it, right? Like, we fucked up the charge. We like the charge in phase one is easy, but the charge in phase three, where you need to basically real time call who's going to not break their webs in order to hit the charge. Fuck that up big time. We fucked up the dispel mechanic. People weren't in the right place, and the boss got off the cast that you're supposed to dispel or else. And
Hmm.
I mean, and we killed it because it's just you're absolutely right. It's just it normal allows you to make those mistakes, and it doesn't punish you. You can brute force it, and I guess I think there should be some bosses in normal that you can brute force. I think the first four, yeah, I'm okay with you brute forcing, but I do think, like, Silken Court and Ansarek are ones that, like, you should have to execute the mechanics. I guess, like, in an ideal world, the game should be you should have to execute the mechanics, or else it's just the mechanics are increasingly complex and more difficult to execute correctly, right? Like, and I actually
Hmm.
think Silken Court is pretty good at that. Like, the idea of in normal you only have to do one tether in order to interrupt the charge. In heroic you have to do two. I actually haven't looked at Mythic if it's more than that. I don't think it probably is. It is. It's three.
I
Um,
don't know.
I don't
I'm
think it is because I think
agreeing.
Mythic adds mechanics that are different, that
Yeah.
give a challenge outside. But, like, I think having to go from needing two people to deal with that tether to needing four people to deal with that tether is a really great escalation of mechanics. It requires more coordinating. You know, when you've doubled the amount of people you need to do something. So in the normal mode, it should be challenging if you fuck it up. And
Hmm.
yet our healers just kind of brute force through it. They were just like, yeah, we can survive that. Let's do it. Um, I don't like that feeling. And I mean, on the other hand, like, this is not the game mode I want to participate in, right? Like, the only the only way I would be fine stopping at normal is if I thought normal was a sufficient challenge, and it's not. But it is for some people, I'm sure. Like, just the coordinating of getting people together is a sufficient challenge for
Yeah.
normal mode. Or you don't want to do LFR, but you want to be able to pug a raid. You're gonna see success in the normal mode of this raid. Like, I really think pugs will be able to have a fairly easy time with this. I think there's a couple things that are gonna give them some difficulty in Answer, but I think they'll be able to get through it pretty easily, and maybe that's ideal ultimately.
Yeah. The other thing that I was gonna say and that I thought of while you were
Rambling.
talking about normal, we went into normal with the majority of our raid being over the item level at which normal drops.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to consider. Which like I don't think in this case is like we tried super hard to be that way. Like obviously I did. I eked out the like last couple item level that got me up to like 607 or something before we stepped foot into the raid. But like I think that there was so much time between like actually being able to raid and everything before that, like even putting in like minimal amount of effort, you were probably somewhere around 600-ish item level,
Hmm.
590, 600-ish item level, right?
Yeah.
So that's even what the normal rate drops 593 to 590 or 603
Yeah, I
gear,
think that's
something
the
like that.
scale. Yeah, it starts 593 and then it scales up from there as you go deeper. Yeah.
So like it's not hard for you to get to the item level at which normal drops. So I think that that's another reason that maybe it felt so steamroll is we were, a solid 10 item levels over.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem that I think rating generally has, and I enjoy rating. I think it's a lot of fun. I like doing it. I'm not doing it just to get gear, although that is certainly a nice little bonus. But this was something I definitely noticed in Dragonflight, especially before they revamped the upgrade system in season two. That just like if you do Mythic Plus at any level, like heroic raid gear it very quickly stops mattering to you. Like
Mhm.
I remember in season 1 of Dragonflight, you know, we went it we cleared it on normal. It took us I think 2 weeks cuz we had some problems with Razageth. And then by then Mythic Plus had been out for those 2 weeks and I went into heroic and I don't think I rolled on a single piece of gear
Yeah, I
throughout the
didn't.
entirety of that raid in heroic because none of it was an upgrade for me because I had Mythic Plus gear. And I think that's something they've helped with this upgrade system. I think heroic gear matters a little bit more than it did, but I think you're right. Normal gear with the addition of the delve path of gearing, normal gear just doesn't matter at all anymore, like at
Yep.
all. Like it's a stepping stone, sure, but it's only a stepping stone if raid is the only content you engage with in this game at all, which I don't think very many people play the game like that. Like
Mhm.
like the bountiful delve system just like tosses 603 stuff at you like 4 a day essentially um for an entire week if you've saved your keys. But also like there's so many other ways of getting keys outside of just saving them for the week. I didn't even realize going into this week, and we'll talk about delves in a bit, but that like the little thing you get from it that allows you to go into like another world quest thing that gives you a bunch of shards that you can turn into more keys. um it's so many keys, and yeah, I didn't even get to particularly play that much last week, and getting 606 was not difficult at all.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think the answer to our question is it depends, as all good questions have the answer. Because like for us, it's not difficult, and honestly, the first four bosses of heroic weren't particularly difficult either, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we aren't overgearing the first four bosses of heroic. We're on par, if not below, the item level at which we probably want to be for heroic. Um, so yeah, I would say as things start to ramp up, like the difficulty of the raid, I think is in a very good spot. I think at the heroic level.
Yeah.
Um, I think at the normal level, it is very easy to overgear at this point, but I think that it is still probably punishing enough for people who are less experienced with the game or lower item level that it probably does matter once you get to like Anserac or some of the like DPS checks, maybe. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think the answer is quite literally just it depends. Um, so I that's that's my 2 cents, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so the next thing that I wanted to ask about is these warbound when equipped items that people are like just grinding out. So for
Oh,
those who
they're gonna
don't
get
know,
banned. Those people are getting banned.
for those who don't know, you can kill a boss, and yet the boss can drop an epic item, which is a little lower item level than the items that they actually drop, but it can be a tier token. And that tier token is warbound until equipped or warbound until open, whatever like I don't know what it actually is on the tier token, but that doesn't go away with your lockout currently. I think that that's going to be fixed. I don't remember if they've announced if it's going to be fixed or not, but currently you can go in and say you kill Ansarek. You can just kill Ansarek 20 more times in the same week and potentially be getting those warbound when equipped pieces to drop from her, and just get your tier, get everything. I mean, honestly, unless you're just murdering heroic bosses over and over again, I don't really see the point of this because you're getting like LFR level tier pieces and shit like that. But if you're doing it on heroic bosses, you're getting normal item level gear, and on the final bosses, like that's not nothing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still highly upgraded champion gear, right?
Yeah. It is for sure. This is I don't. I think you'd be have to be pretty fucking stupid to do this after Blizzard made it very clear that they are taking exploiting very very seriously in this season.
Mhm.
It's just so transparently easy to tell if you're abusing this bug, because who is killing a heroic boss 20 times in a week they're saved to the boss? Nobody is just doing that for funsies, right? Like, you could argue that perhaps, I just want some extra practice on this boss, and so I'm going to do it a few more times, even though I'm not going to get anything from it. And actually, I'm screwing over my group potentially at an additional item by being in that raid. But maybe it's just a raid full of people that have already killed it, and they're just wanting
Yeah.
practice on the boss for some reason. Um, no, it's so transparently obvious that you're abusing this thing, and I hope they act swiftly against those people, because if the thing that I want with the punishment of exploits, and we talked a little bit about this last week, but the thing that I want is them to be consistent and fair. That if you've drawn a line, you need to consistently punish people who cross that line, and this is an obvious thing. But also, what the fuck is wrong with World of Warcraft players? Like, this is not that much of an advantage you're getting here, right? Like, the warbound until equip chance to drop is fairly low, right? So you're going to have to kill this boss 20 times to maybe get one item drop. And guess what? On Warbound until equip drops, they're not necessary things usable for your character, because that's not the point of those drops. It's specifically to gear up your alts. It's a specific tool to help gearing up your alts and to make your alt transition into higher gear levels smooth. So you could kill this boss 15 times and be like, finally, I got my Warbound until equipped tier token. Oops, it's for a class I don't play.
The thing that gets me about this is exactly what you said initially. Like the second Mythic Plus comes out, outside of the tier pieces, everything's useless that you just got.
Mm.
Literally everything. Because if you're somebody who can kill Ansarek in week 1 on repeat, then you're definitely somebody who can do a 10 and get the highest level gear that you can get for Mythic Plus. So like I don't get the point. I just don't get the point.
We are fundamentally broken people is the only answer to this question I have. Like WoW players do this stuff all the time, and it's like, look, I was as desperate for repeatable content as the next person over these past 3 weeks since the War Within came out. But like, I don't know, it's here now. It's coming 7 days away. Just like enjoy the raid, go enjoy the experience. Have one last week of, there's a limited amount of things you can accomplish in a week, and then you can act like a fucking degenerate next week. And there's no limit to what you can do. You can continue to do keys 7,000 times if you want. Do that. It's a much more efficient way of getting gear. So yeah, it's very silly. It's very, very silly.
I am not only excited for keys, but also excited to be able to like actually get upgrades and stuff like that because it feels like there's been this like huge plateau that's just kind of happened.
Hmm.
And I think that there's going to be a lot more sources of upgrades here once the patch drops on Tuesday. So a day ago for those listening.
It was really interesting when I like got the 603 gear from Delves and I was like, hell yeah. And I ran to the upgrade person. I'm like, I'm gonna upgrade this. And then I realized that, oh, I can only get the stuff to 606 before I start needing crests that I don't have yet. Um,
Yep.
and that was an interesting. I maxed out on my crest at that level this week though, and I don't understand how it happened because we only killed 4 heroic bosses, so that's not enough crests to max out.
Are you
Like,
talking about carved?
yeah,
That M0s.
no, it's the one that you get from +4s to +8s. I am maxed out on. The one that
Really?
it drops from heroics and it drops from 4s to 8s. Carved drop from M0s to +3s. And
So the ruined ones? You're
yeah,
maxed on
I
those?
have 90 of them. I logged into
How?
the game for raid today and it just said you have gained 46 of those crests. And I was like, "Oh, okay. What why?" Maybe it's just a bug and they'll roll it back and it'll get taken away from me, but that would annoy me because I didn't get some of the ones in the last couple bosses we killed because I was already capped. So I just didn't get those. So,
That's all right. I'll make sure they roll you back.
oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man. So
But yeah,
I
I'll
but I
report you.
wasn't the only one. Our co-tank also had that experience where he logged in and the game just gave him a bunch of those crests. I don't know why or how,
It's
but
Blizzard's new like ploy to try and get people to continue to play tanks. They just give you free
I
crests.
think I think we deserve it. The hardest job. Nobody appreciates us.
I don't think
I
so.
have to
I don't.
taunt when the game says
Yeah,
taunt.
I don't think that's true though. I think you could ignore a taunt
I
and then
mean,
taunt later.
yeah, that's skill expression.
But I think so. The last thing for raid, and I think this is going to be something that I'd like to talk about for Mythic Plus as well. But like, have you looked at the week 1 logs for raid? Like
Um,
DPS for the most part seem pretty even.
yeah, I mean, there were some outliers like Arcane Mage and Warrior are performing really well, but those are both getting nerfed tomorrow. There was some underperforming specs like poor Boomkin. I think Boomkin in the raid was performing under Augavoker, and I'm not just talking about like Augavoker plus their contribution to other people's DPS. I'm talking like base Augavoker DPS. Boomkin was performing under, which is disgusting. And they're getting a pretty sizable buff tomorrow. I don't think it's going to fix their problems in raid. I do think it's going to make them like really, really powerful in Mythic Plus. But like, there's so many single target fights in this raid that I just don't think they're going to be brought to raid. But yeah, I think other than those outliers, I think you're right. There did it. Ultimately, they did a really good job, and I think if you go back and listen to episodes a month ago, a month and a half ago, we were a little bit worried about this. We were a little bit worried
Definitely.
about the state of balance in the game going into the new expansion. It just didn't seem like they had the sufficient time to get everything squared away. And props to them, they've done it. So good job.
All right, I found it. So I was just looking in our Discord because I knew somebody had posted it. But it looks like, so if you look at this chart, right, everybody is right around, like, it's a very slow drop off. and this is looking at heroic only, so this is gonna be, like, the best of the best guilds most
Yeah,
likely. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, the classes that need probably the most help start at, like, a Feral Druid, and then there's 2 lock specs, Shadow Priest, Fire Mage, Balance Druid, and, like, those could probably use some help,
and they're
and the
getting it,
ones that need yeah, the ones that need nerfed a little bit are probably, like, God, only really Outlaw Rogue and Fury Warrior. I
and they're
mean,
getting
there
that
could be
too.
an
Yeah,
argument there could be an argument that Ret, Arms, and Arcane could use a little bit of a nerf too, but, like, this is a super healthy, for the most part, looking DPS breakdown.
yeah,
Like, obviously, some people are gonna have to be the worst, and I think Fire Mage and Balance obviously need help, but I just don't think that it's so egregious that it can't be fixed until like a point one patch or something like that.
yeah.
So I really think we're in a really good state for DPS, and I think they are going to make it come in line. So I wouldn't worry too much if you are on the lower end of that DPS breakdown, because they should be doing some tuning for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think things on the healer side are a little bit rougher, but there's some pretty substantial buffs to healers coming on in this week's uh, maintenance. Like Resto Druids got a pretty big buff in both their healing and damage. Um, Paladins got nerfed because paladins are always getting nerfed, but it's pretty close there too. And tanks. I don't know how they do it, but there's like no patch notes for tanks this week at all. I think the only thing that changed was uh Blood DK got some buffs to the Sand Lane hero tree because like nobody plays it and they're like really trying to make it comparable to Deathbringer, and it's just not at all. Like even with these buffs, like you're still just going to play Deathbringer. But like there's no big sweeping changes to tanks because they're all in pretty good place right now. I think I'm really
Mhm.
curious what the world first raid comp is going to end up looking like, especially on the tank and healer front, because I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen some people say Guardian Druid, and I don't know how much I feel about how I feel about that. I've seen people say Blood DK is an absolute lock, and that seems like it could be the case. But I think it's gonna be really interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. So I the one thing about comp that I am like the most interested in, and maybe this is just selfish because it's a class I'm playing, but like I want to see what Specs Warlock is playing. And sorry to give the stream whiplash or the podcast whiplash. I have once again changed what I was playing since the last time I told you guys what I was playing a couple
No
episodes
way.
ago.
No
Uh
way.
so our guild needed a lock. So I am playing lock. I've been playing AF and absolutely being like been in love with it. But it's looking like Demo. So Demo and AF are also really similar when it comes to single target damage. Um, Demo has a little bit different of a profile than AF, and it's getting buffed. So it might be the go-to, and I'm really interested to see what happens there because there's only like one fight that's like a solid lock for AF, and it's the two target cleave fight in Silken Court. Other than that, it's a toss-up.
Hmm.
And I think that other there's a lot of other classes that have like hero talents that are relatively similar or like specs that are relatively similar. So I'm really interested to see what their final comp is. And honestly, if Rep Paladin is in there, I am like rooting for the Rep Paladins right now because I thought Rep was going to be like a AoE only kind of class, and they are kind of popping the hell off with this. They swapped their hero talent over from Templar to the other one, which I think is getting a little bit of a nerf. Hopefully, not too bad, but I think that just like it made it so much better for them in single target, and they can take like talents that interact with it and everything. So I'm really rooting for Ret Paladins. That's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, with the Holy Paladin nerf, it might be the how you get your Paladin buff, right? Like I
Hmm.
don't think it's gonna be prot. Could be, but I don't think so. You know, you're so used to seeing a Holy Paladin in every world first comp, and I think I would bet for that rather than against it, um but we'll see. I mean, Red is doing really well.
Um, but as far as other balance things go, I think this is going to kind of bring us into some of the Mythic Plus stuff. So with Mythic Plus, there's a lot that I would like to talk about, and some of it is not so good. We've talked about it in the past, but starting off with another one that I think is relatively good. The balance in Mythic Plus is worse than Raid. It's always going to be because you can only have 5 classes, and there's always going to be the more optimal 5 classes, and people are going to play those.
And they prioritize raid balance over
That's true.
over Mythic Plus balance. Like they do. I don't think they'd ever say that, but they do.
Yeah, if a spec is doing amazing in Mythic Plus, but it's also doing amazing in Raid, you are more than likely going to get nerfed. If you are just doing amazing in Mythic Plus, but you're all right in Raid, you might squeak by without a nerf at all. So, yeah, it's 100% true. But I do think, and this goes for every season ever, and I hope that anybody listening to this podcast remembers this because people say it all the time and nobody ever listens. But any class, any spec can do a 10 in your Mythic. Like you can cap out your Mythic Plus vault and track 100% on any spec always.
For sure.
So just always keep that in mind, please, when we talk about these things. Like, we're not trying to say you can only play Mage in Mythic Plus, but Mage is very good and generally is always going to be good because the utility they bring in Mythic Plus.
Yeah.
So,
but you specifically listening out there, you can only play Mage in Mythic Plus.
I've got something I want to talk about, Scott.
What's that?
They released dungeon changes and hotfixes today. And Dawnbreaker got a hotfix.
It is fixed. So, they did it. They did it just in time. They did it.
We're going to be able to walk into the ship now, and it's never going to be invisible, right? The side ships are never going to be invisible again, right? We're never going to fall through the ships anymore, right?
Don't worry, folks. They did it. It's fixed.
No, the hotfix they got is they added a fucking repair hammer in the damn Dawnbreaker. So, I don't know. I guess when you fall through the ship because it can't fix the fucking bug, at least you can repair your gear in the fucking dungeon.
Why did they do this? Wait, this is a dungeon in which you can mount up. So, like, first of all, there is no understood expectation in Mythic Plus that every dungeon has a place that you can repair your gear. Like, that is not a thing. They occasionally, sometimes, but not all the time. And mostly it's on dungeons that if you can mount, then you can repair because everyone has the repair mount. What?
I don't have an answer. My only conclusion is, and I think, like, so here's the problem. I use the mount randomize button, and whenever I press that, it always just puts me on a flying mount. I have never tried to mount my repair mount in the dungeon. So if they restricted ground mounts and you can only use skywriting mounts, then this kind of makes sense. But if they didn't do that, then this makes absolutely no fucking sense at all.
Is there any location in the game right now that you can get on a flying mount, but cannot get on a ground mount?
I feel like it's happened before. That's the only reason I'm saying it's a possibility. I haven't tried it in Dawnbreaker, but honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. But no, to answer your question that I can think of, no, there is not.
I'm just imagining it's like the night before lock on these changes, and they're looking at the list of Dawnbreaker bugs, and they're like, we can't release this without fixing something in Dawnbreaker. And then someone's like, what if we put an anvil on the ship? And they gave that man a raise. I just like it. I'm speechless. I'm a podcaster and I am speechless. I don't get it.
So of all the other bugs, I think that they're still going to be there for Mythic Plus, and I think that's really sad, to be honest,
Yep.
because like some of them you have to like completely leave the dungeon to resolve. Some of them you have to potentially log out to resolve. Some of them resolve themselves. Some of them are just annoying. Like the one where you land on the ship and you fall through is just fucking annoying because like half the time when I'm flying over to hit a mob on the side ships, I am dismounting, like I am clicking off my mount to land on the ship. So if I fall through, there's no fucking saving myself. I just die.
How
So
how many days until we brick a key because of a bug?
dude,
Um,
if we have one death to that and we are off time by 15 seconds, I'm gonna fucking lose it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
It's gonna
I
happen. You know it's gonna happen. Yeah.
yeah, well,
But you know what
they
we're
need to
not
fix
gonna
the
do?
shit.
Break our gear, cause there's an anvil right there.
Oh, well, Scott, I have a question for you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not going to be a very easy question because it's complete speculation at this point. But I want to get your thoughts. What do you think the hardest and easiest Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be?
Um, Interesting. I think the hardest one is going to be. I don't remember the names of the dungeons. Hold,
Can you
please.
give me a little bit? Give me a little bit to go off of.
Um, I think well, okay. So the hardest M0 dungeon this week, in my experience, was Arakara. And even after, which by the way, we were right about the bloods on the final boss of that you can just do a CC on them and break you out of it. But even after that, I think that boss is still pretty challenging, and I think the challenging will scale exponentially as the dungeon difficulty scales, because it will last longer. You will have access to less easy CC. Although they did make the bloods now interruptible as well, so you can
Yeah,
kick
you can just
them.
kick them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that I think will help with that. But I was also impressed by how difficult Mists of Tyr Scythe was, especially the Mist Caller boss. I feel like the damage during the pick your where you have to pick which one of the four is the right one, like the pulsing damage that comes out during that seems a little high to me right now in that dungeon,
sure.
and I feel like that's going to get real bad in a tyrannical high key. um but I don't know, like honestly, I didn't get a chance to play enough of the dungeons this week to have like really solid understanding of them. um I only did Siege of Borealis once. I did Dawnbreaker like twice. I did Arakara twice. I did Mists once. I think I did Necrotic Wake a couple times. That's, I think, going to be the easiest one in my opinion.
Yeah,
Necrotic Wake.
sure.
Um. So yeah, I mean, I guess like I could just say either Arakara or Dawnbreaker, but I don't know if that's an educated guess or not.
Sure. So I think personally that the Shadowlands dungeons, in my opinion, are going to be the easiest. I think that it's going to be a toss up between Mists or Necrotic Wake for what's easiest. Just from my gut feeling, like this is going kind of off the Mythic Zero, kind of off what we did in beta, but just gut feeling, I think those two are going to be the easiest. They're mechanics that are fresh in people's minds, and for the most part, didn't really change too much.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, hardest though, I think Arakara is up there, but I think with this change to the final boss, it's less scary. I honestly think at this point, the first boss is going to be way more terrifying than anything else in this dungeon.
Oh yeah, and
Like
that's what I was
nobody,
expecting too, and I was a little surprised when the final boss was so difficult. But yeah.
yeah, nobody has truly experienced this first boss unless you were doing high keys in beta. It is not easy. It
It's a
is
it's a
not easy at all.
it's a big heal check. It's also a big DPS check because if you need to get those spiderlings down before they get to the boss, if the boss eats one spiderling, it's over. It's just the damage
Hmm.
amp is absurd. You are dead. You might as well just wipe.
Yeah. Well, and it's a check on your tank to make sure that they're paying attention for positioning. Like
Yeah.
it's a full on group coordination boss. And like going into it this week, you wouldn't even know. Like the ads spawn so far away that you have so much time to kill them that I don't know. This boss specifically scares me.
Hmm.
The other dungeon I'm scared of is Siege of Borealis. And that's a little bit PTSD from my time during BFA, but it's also like I feel like they just made the annoying mechanics in this dungeon more annoying. Like I don't know what they did, but like the second to last boss summons two waves, and from what I remember, there only used to be one, and that's super frustrating because it can spawn on like completely opposite sides of the statue that you have to like LOS on. And I found out you can Warlock Gate through them, so any movement ability that like can transport you through something, it apparently doesn't block LOS. So that's cool, but the final boss just seems like an absolute ton of damage. The first boss is extremely fucking annoying. If you are a caster during the first boss in Siege, like that is one of the most frustrating bosses ever because he pulls you in while you're casting and he summons ads that will also pull you in while you're casting with no indication at all other than this is happening now. Now you need to move.
Is the first one
So
the one where like the tank has nothing to do because the boss just randomly chases people around?
yeah, you tank ads the whole time.
Yeah, that was. I hated that fight. That was stupid. I was like, what do I do? I just take this ad? Okay, it's
Yep.
weird. Um,
So those
yeah,
those are my two votes for hardest.
I also felt like, and again, I only did Siege once, and it's literally the only time I've done Siege in my entire life because I didn't play when the dungeon came out. I think there's a lot of shit in that dungeon that's gonna accidentally get you killed if you lose focus for a half a second. Like there's a lot just environmental shit between like um the what is it called when
Banana peels?
yeah, the banana peels, and then also when like the archers or gunmen are like shooting down the alleyway if you're not hiding behind
Oh,
cover.
yeah.
And it's just like stuff where like that's not that difficult to deal with once you know the dungeon and know the hiding spots. But if you like lose focus, you're like running from pack to pack and you're just not thinking in that moment of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go around the corner and this is gonna be when that I exposed and out of cover. And I have to assume it's gonna scale with key level, and at a high key like one hit from that shit and you're just dead. Like I could just see
Yeah.
that happening, and then that's 15 seconds gone. And yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a challenging dungeon for sure. I just I couldn't answer that because I just didn't know it well enough.
So the next question I have for you is another one that is kind of up in the air currently.
Hmm.
But what's your goals for week 1 for Mythic Plus?
Um, I just get to play. I like this week is so crazy with me in real life that I feel like I'm just not going to get to play very much this week. I mean, I think week one, um, KSM is always the goal. I just don't know how achievable that's going to be or not. Both just from a time perspective for me, am I going to have enough time to play the game enough? And two, I'm still not quite clear how the scoring works
Yeah.
in the season. If like because higher keys have both tyrannical and fortified, if they've just chucked the different scoring for tyrannical and fortified, or if that scoring only kicks in once you get to a key level that has both of them. But like if you're doing twos, threes, fours, fives, six, whatever, it's going to score it the same as it has in past seasons. And so it's going to be really difficult to get up there unless you're doing tens.
Mhm.
I don't know. So we'll see. I mean, it sure would be nice to get two piece next week. And that's what's waiting for you if you can get KSM. So I guess that'll be like the stated goal, but I just don't know if I'm gonna have time to
Yeah.
do that.
Well, I could be talking out of my ass here completely, but I feel like they did confirm that there isn't going to be two separate scores anymore.
Did they?
But
Okay.
I don't think that they told us how the scaling was going to go with that.
And
So, like, is it going to take sevens to get KSM now or something like that?
it's weird. Like I how come there's not a content creator that just knows this and has communicated it to me specifically?
I don't have you went around on Twitter asking, like, JB and stuff like that?
No, I have
I'm sure
not,
he
but I
knows.
expect them to make videos that I click on. What do I pay these people for, you know?
I'm with you though. I think my goal for week 1 is KSM. Obviously, as close to hero as possible would be ideal because that means I'm getting tens done and filling up my vault with tens. But I mean, let's be real. Like doing a 10, which is essentially a 20 week one that the shit's open is. I mean, that's going to be a tall ask.
I don't have any expectation of getting to do that. I think getting one done, perhaps not timed, but just completed to lock in that one vault slot, that would feel good. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, I don't have any expectation that I'll actually pull that off.
I think the last thing as far as like Mythic Plus goes is I just want to say, and I hope you feel the same. I think you do because we talk about this a lot, but I'm just excited to have something to like actually do in the fucking game. Like something repeatable, something I can keep going back to. I I know how spoiled I am with Mythic Plus and how much it lets you like continue to play the game that you love, but I just you take it for granted until you don't have it. And man, it has been a long, essentially month without fucking keystones in this game.
Yeah, I mean everything we've been talking about over the past month, like the storyline, the questing, the outdoor zones, delves, heroics, raid, blah 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 blah. The reason I play this game is Mythic Plus. I like all that other stuff. I love keys, and I haven't gotten to do keys in forever. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I wish I was not working tomorrow when the servers come up, but I am very busy this week. This is the worst possible week for this to happen for me, both in my personal life and my day job and all the stuff. So it's unfortunate, but we'll there's going to be plenty of time to catch up this season, so I'm not too worried about it. Especially with the kind of the death of push weeks in the high
Hmm.
key format, that going away. I'm not going to feel like I'm going to miss out on a push week because I didn't get to play. I don't even
Yeah.
know like what do we even know what the affixes are like next to like is it fortified? Is it tyrannical? Which of the Zalates bargain it is? I have no fucking idea at all.
So we won't know until it comes out, and once we get through a rotation, then that'll be posted. But yeah, we won't know. And honestly, I'm fine with that. So
Sure, it makes it
I
fun. It
have
makes it fun.
Yeah, yeah, it does make it fun. It makes it unknown too, which is cool. And I don't think that there's anything that's so impactful that we're gonna be like, God damn it, is that week one? You know,
Hmm.
like especially if we get to the point where they don't matter. Like once you get the crazy thing is once you start doing 12s, like it just doesn't fucking matter. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, like push week is gone, and that's cool for me.
Hmm.
I am happy with that.
Yep, I am too.
Uh, but as somebody who does have the day off tomorrow, who has taken time off, uh, I think I am going to have to specifically work when servers come up, though, sadly. There's
Oh,
a couple
really?
of things that I have to do this week, and I think that I have a meeting specifically then.
That's
Um,
all right. You'll have plenty of time. You'll have plenty of time. I'll be sitting here at work with Discord open on my phone, looking at all the people in voice chat being like, "Oh, I want to play. I want to play."
but I'm just the thing that I'm worried about with it though is I have a feeling that there's still going to be kind of a drought of people who potentially know what the dungeon mechanics are because I don't did you pug much at all for your mythic zeros this week that you did? I know you said you didn't
Mm,
do very many.
no, I had none of them.
uh
Maybe
it's
like
been
maybe
rough.
like pugged one or two people, but not. It was not like me in a group of four randos.
I don't think that I did a dungeon without guildies where I was in like, what in the hell are we doing? Like it feels like people just don't know what the hell's going on in the dungeons, which like rightfully so, like they just came out. So not
Yeah.
trying to like throw shade at anybody, but in a Mythic Plus scenario and people not knowing what the dungeons do, it becomes a lot bigger of a problem. So
Yeah.
I'm a bit worried about that.
I mean, I think between the dungeon spamming in normals to level, the heroic spamming in for 2 weeks because that's all we had to do, and then M0 last week, especially with the four War Within dungeons. I think people have run these dungeons enough that they think they know them, but not enough to where they actually know them. And it is going to be a very rude awakening when both you have to pretty drastically change how you pull the dungeon, and also like the mechanics start really mattering. The pulsing AoE damage that you didn't really notice as a healer because you know you do one AoE heal and you're covered, you're done.
Mhm.
That suddenly is going to become a lot more, and if you're not prepared for that, it's going to be tough. I think if I'm being as charitable as possible, what I think is happening is the ease of progression in the content over the last 3 weeks has pushed a lot more people into these systems and these things that
Yeah.
they've possibly never done before, which is good, which is a good thing. But I think what happens is you get a lot of people that just don't really understand how this stuff works, and we'll see if those people are pushed into keys as well, and I hope they are. But I do think people are gonna be surprised at how hard this stuff is. I think there's gonna be a lot of people struggling on twos and threes that still in their mind envision twos and threes as the way they were before they did the M plus squish, and are going to be pretty frustrated at the struggle there.
Yeah. I am hopeful that we have a good pool of people who are just playing. I think is like my main thing.
I think we
Cuz
will.
like there's nothing worse than like going to try and like look for keys and you see like, oh wow, there's like 5 sevens total.
hmm
It's like, what in the fuck is going on?
I think there will
Uh,
be. I do.
well, good deal. Uh, I guess, Scott, not really the topic that I want to chat about because I don't necessarily feel good about these anymore. But
hmm
what the fuck happened with Delves? And like I put this in the script, but like really, what the fuck happened with Delves?
They fucked it up.
It's bad. It's so bad. Like it's impossible to okay. If you're not a tank currently, it is like nigh impossible to solo a delve right now.
I I don't want to be this person. I don't like being this person. I don't like telling people I told you so. But we had a conversation about delves like 6 weeks ago, and I think the thing I specifically said was, if all the thing is kill mobs, then it's gonna suck for people that can't do that well on their own. And that's exactly what we saw, is like, if you are a tank or a particularly strong survivable DPS, these things are pretty easy for you. If you are not, these things are horrible for you. Priests don't need an interrupt, Tevin. They don't need one unless a priest wants to solo a delve in which a stupid Nerubian is chain casting a web bolt on you that does 1,000,000 damage, and you have no way to stop it. Um,
What about what happened
what
with
a
delves?
fucking mess. What a fucking mess.
We talked about these a week ago, and it was the day that they came out, and like we were both kind of like, whatever, like they work, it's fine. They get kind of hard once you get into the upper levels. And then they just like they took that and just turned it to like 15.
Yeah.
Like doing things in a group right now is just not viable.
Yeah.
If you do it in a group, you're getting one shot. Even with one other person, you're just fucking dying to unavoidable damage.
So I heard that they fixed that, but I haven't walked into a group when. So here's how my week happened. Thursday night we recorded. I got my 4 delves done, I think, before recording. Or no, I hadn't yet. I had just gotten up to the 8, and I did my 4 after we recorded on Tuesday. Wednesday I did
Mhm.
them. Thursday I did them, and that was the majority of my keys. I only had a few keys left, and I walked Friday morning with a full group of our guildies into a delve. Friday morning. I heard that there were hot fixes that went in the previous night, but I hadn't really paid attention to them. And we were getting annihilated. Like, just like, I was like, what the fuck? What happened? These things were destroying us. It's like one cast got off, person dead, boop, dead. And they also in that Thursday hotfix changed the thing where it didn't count as a death if you just resurrected the person, which I get, like that was a bug. Um, but then like what that means is if you wipe in a delve once, it's over. Because that's all 5 of your lives. That's it. Done. Over. Might as well restart. And oh, it was awful. It was just awful. And to happen midweek like that, to happen midweek and for them to fuck up so much on this, like what a disaster. Like I can't imagine a worse introduction to a new pillar of end game gameplay for Blizzard than everyone's experience with Delves this week. Like what a disaster.
Well, and it's been so back and forth in their communication on it.
Yeah.
Like they were like, "Oh, well, things are a little too easy, so we made them a little bit harder." And then it was like, "No, it's not a little bit harder. It's way fucking harder." And
Mhm.
then everybody's complaining about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, maybe things were a little too hard, so we're gonna nerf it a little bit." And then that was accurate. They nerfed it a little bit, not very much, just a little bit. And then there was this whole shit where like people were playing back and letting Brann tank and deal damage, but then they removed the scaling that Brann could get if you were doing it like that. So now Brann essentially got nerfed for the classes that couldn't tank for themselves,
Yeah,
but didn't really get nerfed for everyone else.
so this was a bug. What was happening was Bran was scaling in HP and damage along with the way the mobs in Delve scale with HP and damage as you go up. So each level, if you did an 8, if you did a 9, if you did a 10, Bran was getting the same percentage buff that the enemies were. And that was not an intended thing. They did not mean for that to happen. What it meant was in an 8, Bran had like holy shit hit points and damage and could just tank for you. Yeah. They buffed they fixed that, but then they buffed Bran by like 125%. It's been a good day for Brann overall. But yeah, I mean, like these are all things, by the way, that is what testing is for. Like it felt in this more than anything in this entire expansion, it felt like this week was the test week for Delves. That we
Mm.
live players were testing their new thing, and maybe the reason for that is they just couldn't get people to fucking walk in these things in beta because anyone in beta really like this is not the reason they're playing the game is this. And look, I kind of like them on occasion. I we talked about this on Tuesday, but last week, but I do want to get up to an 11. I do want to try to solo the big bad and unlock that cool dirigible looking flying machine thing. I do want to do that eventually. Um but this is never going to be my thing, and I'm done with them now. I'm done. I'm done. No, that's not true because I got a map. I got a map in one that I did, so now I need to do one to spend the map. But um, what a disaster! What like and as one of our guildmates pointed out at the end of raid, the vault from these things is better than even the heroic raid vault. Like it's literally the best
Yep.
possible. And this is, I think this is actually a problem in design philosophy that they didn't really get nailed down. Is like, what do you want these to be? Because you've put the best possible gear for the week is in these things now. So do you want them to be like a mindless kind of easy, just like shoot the shit with your friends, or do solo and it's a little bit more challenging, but still it's like mostly casual gameplay? Do you want it to be that, or do you want it to be a white knuckle, really really hard experience that awards really really good gear? Um, and I thought it was the former, but then
Yeah.
with how they have structured the rewards from this thing, it seems like and their response to it being too easy was to turn up those dials like crazy. It seems like they were like, "Ah, we regretted this now. We should have made it harder." Um, uh, I mean, the honest truth is the reason why they made the gear so good is because they wanted to encourage people to do it because this is the new thing that they spent all this time and money on, and they want people to play it. This is one of their new pillars. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't. What a fucking mess. What a mess.
So you brought up maps, and the one thing that I did want to say, and I alluded to this when we talked about it on Tuesday, but I felt like these things were extremely rare.
Mm-hmm.
And after doing delves for another week and talking to people in our guild for another week, I think I can probably count on my 10 fingers the number of maps that we got just in the guild of people that I talked to. So let's say like I talked to probably 20 people, and I think that we got 10 or less maps
I
of
got
those
2.
20 people, everybody doing shit that
Mhm.
week. I know you and one other person who got 2. Everybody else I've talked to got 1 at most.
Yeah. And I don't
But
know, so my second one came out of a 9. So I don't know if like the drop rate for them increases as you go up beyond 8s. I don't know. I actually read, we talked about, I don't know if this is true, but I read that they don't actually drop from below 8, so all our fear mongering about doing lower levels on lower level characters was all for naught. But I think the rate of drop does increase as you go up. But I don't know.
gotcha. Well, either way, Dells are an absolute fucking shit show right now, everybody. So I would, yeah, potentially stay away until they get fixed, or maybe you start to outgear it.
Hey, they made those stupid mobs that chain cast web bolt now stop casting after you interrupt them. What a concept. Like the most annoying thing in the world is when you interrupt one of those things and you're like, all right, now come here, come to the rest of the group so we can AoE you down. And it's just like, no, I'm going to
Web
stand
bolt.
here.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
Hmm.
Um, Scott, I have a question for you, a little bit off script, but I didn't want to put it on here because I didn't know if we would get to it or not. But we talked about the race already a little bit, and that is going to be starting tomorrow.
Yeah,
And obviously, as the degenerates that you and I are, that's probably going to be like the only thing that we're watching all day.
yeah.
It'll be constantly on in the background, especially if they're doing Mythic. I mean, if they're not doing Mythic, I could see us turning it off. But uh, one, the splits have seemed like they're going extremely well. And I want to say this with the caveat that I have only watched Liquid. I haven't watched anything that Echo's been doing yet. Not because I dislike Echo. I think honestly Echo has the better broadcast 95% of the time.
Mm.
But I think that at least from what I've seen with Liquid, things seem to be going very well. They didn't get to the point where like they did on Raz for the first raid of the last expansion, where it like took them a day or two to kill it, to figure out everything. So that's cool. But also, it seems like if we are actually going into Mythic on Tuesday, this is, I think, the quickest turnaround we've ever had for like doing splits and getting into Mythic, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing how casual their week was, all things considered. I don't think they rated today at all. Today being Monday, I think
Hmm.
they finished their last heroic splits over the weekend and just chilled today.
Hmm.
And again, that's Liquid specifically. I'm pretty sure Echo had a little bit more stressful of a time because they did get that 4-day ban on more of their players, so I think they had to run some extra stuff over the weekend. But I think, when you listen to people like Max talk about how they didn't think this 4-day ban is going to really impact the race very much because everyone's going to get in their splits anyway. I When I heard that, I said, "Oh, okay, I'll take your word for it." But I assumed everyone was going to be like sweaty, like doing full days of splits the entire week. But that's just not how it ended up being. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you're right that there is still there is a possibility that they will do some splits tomorrow before getting into heroic, or maybe they're going to get into heroic, do a few bosses, and then do some splits. I don't really quite understand how and when they make those calls. Um, but yeah, I mean, this feels like a very very chill, casual heroic week for a guild that has 17 characters for each one of their raiders and is doing splits all day
Yeah.
every day for the first few days. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think to me this is like proof positive for why heroic week should just be a thing every tier. Like, I just really think it should, with the caveat that give me Mythic Plus though. Give me that.
Yeah. Give us Mythic Plus, or don't make it too don't make it 2 fucking weeks
Yeah,
of
yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
Uh yeah, I don't know. My next question that I had for you, and this is going to be more of a speculatory one because I know how you and I both actually feel about this and who we want to win the race. But who do you think Obviously, you and I haven't really been keeping up a ton with Echo, but do you think that they are positioned well enough to be going into the boss on Wednesday? Well, yeah, Wednesday for
No, I
them.
think I think Method's gonna win.
Like really though, like what with Method? Do you think that they're going into uh the raid on Tuesday?
Um, no, I don't think Method is. I think Liquid probably. Well, I mean, Liquid has the or sorry, Echo has the advantage that they get to see what Liquid does, and they probably have their own plan, but they probably part of their plan is also like, let's see how Liquid approaches the first day, and we'll kind of
Mhm.
build our plan off of that. So I don't know. I haven't been looking at average item levels and like what they need. I'm assuming everyone has tier by this point, but I don't know. I guess like the thing that I would have to think is that any splits that are happening before Mythic this week are specifically targeting certain things like high performing trinkets and things like that. Um, and I don't know how many of those there are. Like I know there's some good trinkets in this raid, but I don't know if they're like, oh my god, this will be the difference between us killing this boss and not trinkets. So I don't know. I think everyone. I'm going to say that I think everyone is going to step into Mythic right away. Um,
Cool.
that's my possible bold prediction, but I think that's how it's
That's
going to happen.
that's what I'm hoping for. And this brings me to the next point that I wanted to ask. There's normally a guild called the Early Shift who gets the first like 2 to 4 bosses down before the other guilds do.
Yeah, they
Uh
they hate heroic week. Like it really fucks with their whole world.
what's going to happen with the Early Shift? Do you think they're not going to get any world first kills?
um, I don't know. They might. I mean, I guess. So let me change my. I think there is a greater than 50% probability that Liquid walks in and does one heroic split before going into Mythic. Um, and if that's the case, then early shift is gonna get a chance to get some pulls on the first boss or two, and probably kill them relatively quickly. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see it. Obviously, there's a guild out there called Fat Shark Yes, whose like whole motto is like you can have a full time job and still raid with them. So I always root for those guys because
Hmm.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But uh, but yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll see everybody just go into Mythic right away. I
Yep.
think that'd be the coolest thing. It doesn't normally happen, so that'd be awesome. Uh, the other part of it is I just kind of want to see the Mythic mechanics.
I so sometimes I like spend a lot of time in the dungeon journal and actually look at what they are. I have not done that for this raid like at all. The only boss I really know anything about on Mythic is the second to last boss, because I just like that was like infamous in testing that the tuning of that was absolutely crazy. Um and I think it's going to be probably I guess that's my prediction is I think that's going to be the most challenging boss in the raid pull count wise. I'm not saying that that'll be harder or easier than Ansarek, but I think it's going to have the most pulls in the raid.
Sure.
And I wish I could. Why do I keep forgetting the name of that boss? The
Silken Court.
Silken Court. Thank you.
You're
Um,
welcome.
I think that's going to be really really interesting. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of. I think it is fun to kind of learn what the mythic mechanics are as you are watching the guilds prog on them for the first time. I think that's really fun, especially since we have a pretty good understanding of the heroic mechanics at this point. Like I think I have a really really good grasp on all of them, even the bosses we haven't done so. Like I watched a really in depth video on Ansarek heroic this week, and so I have a pretty good grasp of everything in there. And then so seeing the mythic wrinkles in those, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's exciting, man. I love the race. I love watching the race. I'm definitely gonna have it on my phone while in the office tomorrow all day, and for the rest of the week probably. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, I so we where we went after we killed Rashanon was Princess Kaiveza or
Hmm.
whatever uh that boss is. We didn't go to Gahoon's younger cousin, Brood whatever that I can't remember his name.
Hmm.
Uh
Don't ask
and
me. I don't
that
know.
boss is that's a lot of damage on Kai'Veza. A lot of it is avoidable, but there's a lot of unavoidable damage on that too. And I just am very interested to see what they're going to do on Mythic for that boss. Because,
Mhm.
like, it's late enough in the raid that it could be something crazy, but also early enough in the raid where I could just see it be damage cranked to 100. And if that's the case, like, the healers are gonna have to be blasting on
Oh,
that
yeah.
boss.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely blasting. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. The egg boss is another one I'm looking forward to, because I can only imagine that that's gonna be even more absolutely chaotic and interesting than, it is on heroic, and heroic already has, like, a ton of shit going on. So, yeah, those are my 2, like, most anticipated bosses that we might actually see this week.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
let's face it, I don't think it's gonna be a 1 week mythic kill. So,
No, I think this will be a fun prediction. I think, midway through week 2, I think maybe Friday of week 2,
sure.
maybe Saturday. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to how they tune this thing because, I mean, the last raid we saw was tuned very tightly. And that was some challenging bosses at the end of that raid, and I think Silken Cord especially has a chance of being that again. But I think you're right that the princess has a chance of that as well. I don't know. We will see. I'm pretty pumped. Pretty pumped.
But all right. Well, I don't have anything else as far as the race is concerned. I do have a couple of other like kind of final things that I wanted to pick your brain about as far as like our experience with the raid this week though. We had a few mishaps as far as like the second boss when we went into it day 1. So we finished normal day 1 and we actually killed the first boss and got to the second. Um is it weird or am I crazy or does the second boss seem like way harder than the other 2 bosses following
The
it?
second boss is the
'Cause-
hardest of the first 4 for sure,
Yeah.
easily. Um, and that is a little strange, but
It
it's a fun
feels like
boss fight. I like it a lot.
it just like it doesn't feel hard to me. Like I don't know what it is. It's like we go in there and it's like everything just is happening. You're killing all the ads and everything like that. As long as the tanks are positioning the beams correctly, I just don't feel like it feels like that hard of a fight. Now, if you're having to go back and run through and kill the like mobs or whatever because the beams got placed incorrectly or you focus damage on the
Who
wrong
would do
thing,
that? Who would do that?
then it gets difficult. But I just it feels like to me the first 4 bosses are kind of pushovery,
Yeah.
and we talked about that earlier, but the second boss I think is one that I could see being kind of like a stopping point for guilds who are a little less coordinated because it does have a lot of positioning, like tank positioning requirements that you have to just kind of do on the fly.
Yeah, it's gonna be very pug unfriendly too. Because like the one thing we were having on Friday is people were just not really understanding the priority order for the ads. Like knowing that the beam's going to be swinging counterclockwise, you need to kill the one closest to the beam first, and then move on to the others. Was a thing that it took a couple pulls for people to understand. I think that's a thing in pugs that is just going to be like slamming your head into a brick wall.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's doable. Like you just have to rely on your tanks. And as I said at the beginning of the podcast, my game tells me when to taunt. So I don't know how to do all these other things that you're talking about here.
Well, I think as far as the show is concerned this week, I don't think that there's much more for us to go into. I want to make sure that we save ourselves enough time to really cover Mythic Plus in depth in the next one,
Hmm.
because I think we're going to have a lot of time for you and I to kind of experience Mythic Plus. Maybe not as much time as we normally would in a regular week, being that there is things that both you and I have going on in our personal lives. But I think it'll be enough for us to cover it. So I really want to save a lot of the Myth Plus discussion for next week.
Oh, for sure. I
Um,
haven't played it, so I can't talk about it.
we might have more to cover on Heroic too, because we should be ideally. further along than we currently are in heroic by the time that we chat about this
I
again.
have a very
So
good feeling that we will be on Ansarek by the next time we talk. If not further.
I'll make you eat those words then on next Tuesday if we're not.
I think the gear buff in this week between now and when we're in the raid again, I think it's gonna be pretty significant. And
Yeah,
everyone's gonna have
that's
a
fair.
lot more hit points. We're gonna have a lot more damage, a lot more output. I think it's gonna be quite the difference.
Yeah, completely fair, completely fair. But all of that's for next week, guys. So I guess we'll see you back then. But until then, I have a question for you all. Now that everything is unlocked, what are you planning to focus on? Are you gonna do delves? Are you gonna do Mythic Plus? You gonna go kill a normal raid boss over and over again for your warbound until equip gear?
You gonna be
Uh,
banned for 7 days for doing that?
what's the plan for you guys? So let us know over on YouTube. Leave a comment there or on Twitter. So the YouTube is at Yelling Into the Void. Wow. If you're watching us there, hi, happy to see you. Please leave a comment, like the video if you like it. Love you guys. Again, Twitter is at Into the Void. Wow. And then the email is yellingintothevoidwow@gmail.com.
And please make sure you subscribe to this podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, of course, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss an episode. Mythic Plus is our baby, and it's back. Our baby is back. So we're gonna have a lot to say over the next few weeks and months as we really get into that system once again.
Also consider, like I said, liking and subscribing on YouTube, commenting. All of these things help. And again, feel free to interact with us over on Twitter as well. I have been a little bit neglectful to the Twitter account, so I'm going to try and post some more things on Twitter here in the coming week. And I also do want to continue streaming over on YouTube as well. We are streaming just on YouTube currently. I am probably going to try and figure out multi-streaming so we can get on Twitch as well. And if we do that, I'll add it here to the closing remarks. But with Mythic Plus coming up, I'm going to be recording the gameplay anyways for myself, so why not just stream it and get a VOD? So
Boom.
hopefully we'll see you guys over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all right, guys, until next time, we'll catch you next week and we'll just be over here yelling into the void.